You know, I remember when this movie came out and its lukewarm welcome. Everybody hated it. It's 2.5 hours of boredom. And now I can tell you a couple of details why. First, the first quarter, third is just recycling Origin Wolverine, but instead it places the whole thing on Magneto, living in the woods, doing its tough average life. We've seen it, boring, don't need it. Then we have Apocalypse doing nukes, aka we are recycling First Class, X-Men First Class. Boring, we've seen it already. By the way, if you want to burn up the world, why get rid of the nukes? What was the point of that? Not that humanity wouldn't have big enough rockets without nukes. Now let's see the four horsemen of Apocalypse. Storm is sure solid choice, although let's consider what Magneto got. Her power increase was lame. Also, I can't stop emphasizing that in the comic books, she was a literal goddess. Got education from, I don't know, Professor X, let's say that, and she gave up being a goddess because facing the truth. Now, still solid choice, but given that Magneto now can literally blow up the whole of the fucking planet and move continents around, she still feels lame. And you know who is the lamest? Angel. This is a different Angel, but you know, different kind of wings, different person. What he can do with Apocalypse boosted maxed out power? Shoot blades from his wings. He uses it exactly one time in the whole movie, by the way. That's just why. It's just pick anyone else. The verse, although, is not even him. Not him is the worst. The worst is Psyche. In the comic books, she was a telepath. She practically got the telepath of the group in place of Xavier, who was way too overpowered for his own good either way. And by the way, this movie points out that what he did in The Last Stand marks him as a villain forever, because what he did is what Apocalypse does here. You know, this body swapping thing. We will talk about Apocalypse in a moment, but riddle me this. Why is Psyche here? Just a fancy Electra? What's this katana bullshit, energy blade and all that kind of bullshit? No psychic abilities. Nothing. Not even close to the closest. In the comics she wore pink clothes. And I'm absolutely fascinated by it. It just worked. This is bullshit. It's useless. Now, Apocalypse. He is the first mutant with all the powers. This too, by the way, is suspiciously like the creationist concept of the races, especially humans, that everything just degenerates. Not a good message. And this collecting of powers, just because you are hopping bodies, how do you get all the mutant powers? The body can have a power because of, cellular structures and all that, and he can have his apocalypse power, whatever that is. We never learned what his original power was. So how is he collecting powers? It's just absolute bullshit. And what word does he offer to humanity? Pyramids. And even without air conditioning. Fucking great. I would work him too. No second thought. Fuck you bullshit. No one would agree with this kind of nonsense. Because this is a stupid idea. And what was his plan? I mean, before he wanted to mind control everybody. What was his plan? He has a guy who can rearrange the continents for whatever reason, because anything after the Bronze Age is bad. He has a guy who can shoot blades, a woman who can swing blades, and Storm who can shoot lightnings or something. How will this make him conquer the Earth? It won't. He will be hit with some ballistic rocket and he will die. So, yeah, that was fancy. Now, some people complained that in Origin Wolverine, the fat guy is not comic book accurate. We get the comic book accurate version here. It was lame. And they were forcing on us Nightcrawler. I find him as offensive as an average MAGA person finds Miss Marvel offensive. His constant preaching of Christianity is intolerable to my conscience. And why is Mystique the protagonist here? And everybody is turning good for some reason, even Magneto. This is just dumb. And the origin of Professor X bald head is a very minor merging with Apocalypse. Seriously? We had to spend 2.5 hours just to learn that? Not to mention the final fight. I won't even buckle down with Wolverine because we all the movies we have to have Wolverine, just like we had to have Stan Lee, who is a legend. Well, fuck your legend. You know what's wrong with Miss? It always became more legendary and mythical and all that with time and telling. But in reality, Stan Lee was an asshole who was stepping over his colleagues without a second thought, only thinking of himself. So yeah, Stan Lee wasn't that good of a guy. Now let's talk about this final fight. And I won't even bother to tell you that spend a half an hour with like speed 50, 80 kilometer per hour, so that's, I don't know, 30, 40 miles per hour. It will strip down your skin without protection. It happened. We learned it in the University of Agriculture. Somebody got stuck in a aerosoling airplane, you know, those little ones, some Cessna. Somebody got fired for that. Now let's get back to this final fight. You know, Beast dragging away the Quicksilver whose leg got broken, also Mystique. Fine, that's the only thing they can do, because this is not their level. So they are brawlers. They are pretty low level mutants. If the movie had some sense, then it's one power starting to get some effects, then another power joins in, another power joins in, another power joins in. And especially Storm would also join in with electricity power. But now this movie just is almost as dumb as the previous one. What was that? I even forgot. Whatever. Days of the Future Past, yeah. And when Professor X, in his own mind, I have to emphasize this, is in his own mind, gets to the door of Cerebro, Jean's job would be, if the movie would make any kind of sense, to open the door of Cerebro. Because that's the whole theme, one of the theme of this movie, that Apocalypse can enhance your power, unlock the full potential, or whatever you want to call it. So that would unlock Professor X's ultimate power. And he would overcome Apocalypse on a larger scale at least. And also then Jean would go out and do his telekinesis shtick. Her. Anyway. If you want to do this, I don't know, I really have zero idea why we want to do the Dark Phoenix saga once again. We saw that. The last stand was the Dark Phoenix saga. Why we want to repeat it, I have no idea. This is like the same shit, like Dune and its sequel in the novels Messiah of Dune. Why are we retelling the story? There was the original Dune in 1986. The Lynch made the Dune. It was one of version. It's perfectly fine. Then the Sci-Fi Channel, when it was not this, when it was still properly sci-fi, they made the TV series or whatever you want to call it, miniseries, whatever, and they made Dune and Dune Messiah. And now the Snyder or whoever is made third Dune and is making Dune Messiah. Can't we continue from Children of Dune? I mean, sci-fi already made Children of Dune. So how about the goal being making God Emperor of Dune? What would be the complete saga? There were some sequels in the book, but they are pretty useless. The whole point of the story culminates in God Emperor. And there is no plan making that movie, that story. Now, back here. If you want to unlock the Phoenix, and his cerebral door would emphasize that it's Professor X thresholds, airlocks for the full power of Jean Grey. You know, he put it behind barriers. Then why are we in Professor X's mind? It should have been established that we are in Jean's mind. If not, doing it properly, at least bring it to Jean's home. And Apocalypse could call it Xavier's home because he doesn't know better. It should have been Jean's home if you want to do the fight this way. And you could have integrated Jean opening it or something like that. It's just... By the way, just a quick difference. In the original timeline, Scott Summers had the ruby glasses in his skull before he met Charles Xavier. Just telling. Also, ask yourself this. Why didn't Apocalypse happen in the original timeline? Because we know that the timeline is supposedly split in whenever. Although I have to point out that this supposedly happens at the same time when Logan turns into Wolverine, or James turns into Logan, whatever. But if that's true and it happens in the same time, Snyder's experiment on Wolverine, we know that this apocalypse happens in 1983, so that would place the first X-Men movie into 1998, but that movie was released in 2000, and there are, of course, differences compared to that timeline's experiment. But still, Apocalypse existed before current era 3600. So he existed in the original timeline too. He was just not digged out, or what? I have no idea. And all these differences point out that the First Class timeline was never the same as the original trilogy's timeline. There is no branching from it. It was always separate. Oh, and you know what drags this movie down by a lot? They don't really do anything. They are walking up and down, but they don't really use the mutant powers. For the majority of the runtime, these people could have been anybody. Absolutely anybody. And it wouldn't change a single thing. And just a nitpick. Jubilee apparently was a fan favorite enough character to be shown in every movie. At least until now, I guess in the future too. And on the credits, she's named Jubilee. Here she even gets line. She even gets line, but she's never named in the movie itself. Why? Why can't you name the character? The whole thing is just a big 2.5 hour shame.